now. So I'm going to share these top 2 that are happening right now, but it doesn't mean that this is an exhaustive list. There can be a ton of other symptoms that you're going through, but these are the 2 that I've been finding that are very, very present right now in so many people, including in myself. So I want to talk about them, okay? Give you some information on that. The first one that's most common right now at this moment is muscle inflammation, okay? So this can feel like it's a muscle inflammation that the muscles feel very tender, they feel very inflamed, they feel tender to the touch, they feel tight, exhausted. Another kind of metaphor for this type of pain is that it feels like your muscles are on fire. The inflammation feels very fiery. Okay. Now, this is going on, especially in places where there is energy blockages or where the energy is harder to purge or harder to move. Okay. So for you, you could be having this type of inflammation, this muscle inflammation pain in your lower back. You could be having it in your chest, in your stomach, in your legs. It can literally be anywhere. For me, it's been affecting me particularly here in the trapezius muscle, shoulder area, and the neck area. But for other people, it's been different. But the point is that this symptom it's a very kind of inflammatory, fiery kind of symptom. And it's going to happen as the energy, the light is moving through your body. If it catches any denser areas that are having a hard time releasing, it's gonna kind of push into those areas, and that can cause this kind of muscle inflammation or tenderness in your muscles. This symptom of muscle inflammation really reminded me, when I started to feel it, it really reminded me of my Kundalini awakening. So this kind of pain can actually be very similar to the muscle pain that you can feel if you're having a challenging Kundalini awakening. Very, very similar pain. Now, if you don't know if you're having a Kundalini awakening or whatever it even is, I shot a video on that, and I'll leave links in the description box below so you can go deeper on that after watching this video to see if you're having ascension symptoms or maybe you're going through a Kundalini awakening. Now, the most important thing to remember here about this symptom is that your muscles are tender and inflamed because the new light that's coming in is kind of coming face to face with areas of your body where denser energy is housed that's having more difficulty to be released. Okay, so that's where the tenderness is coming in. It's just the energy coming into those areas and having a little bit of time clearing out the blockages. Okay, so just remember that, because when I talk about the tips later on, all the tips are going to be kind of to help really alleviate the tenderness in the best possible way. Okay, on to symptom number 2, and that is mental agitation. Now, this can be a really challenging symptom to go through, and I work with a lot of people when I'm working with coaching groups, and when we're going through coaching and shifts and helping people move energy. The mental agitation part of Ascension is one of the most difficult things for people to deal with. They would actually sometimes much prefer dealing with physical, actual muscle pain than they would the mental agitation. And it's because we're so used to being identified with the mind that when the mind starts to get agitated, we start to freak out. Okay, so this is sometimes a hard Ascension symptom that's very, very prominent, and it's happening right now. Okay, now what is this mental agitation? What do I even mean by this? Mental agitation means that people are experiencing right now very disjointed thoughts that are random, thoughts that are all over the place, thoughts that are sometimes even dark or violent or make absolutely no sense. They have this really heavy energy to them, and they're all over the place. You can feel like your mind is all over the place. Some people literally start to question whether they're losing their marbles because their mind is just random thoughts all over the place that have nothing to do with what you're focusing on in your present everyday life. Your mind is just off doing some kind of Hollywood horror story. And so that's very, very common right now. And we need to go into understanding why this mental agitation, why we're having thoughts that make no sense, that are totally disjointed, that are all over the place. There's a reason for this happening right now, and I want to go into that so it'll help kind of calm you down if you're feeling any kind of anxiety around your mind freaking out a little bit. A little side note here before I get into the reason why this mental agitation is happening. And the side note is that the mental agitation is common to happen when you're about to fall asleep or when you're first starting to wake up early in the morning. Okay, so test this in your life if this is happening. It's most common for it to happen in those times of the day, but your mind could be freaking out throughout the day too. But just pay attention and see if you happen to be having this mental agitation more right as you're falling asleep and as you're waking up. Okay, so that's a little side note I wanted to leave here. Now let's get into the reason why this mental agitation is happening. Okay, so when we were talking about ascension, we were talking about how your body has about 40 trillion cells. Each one of those cells is a sentient being, and in the process of ascension, the first thing that the cells do is they start to purge out old energy. Well, one thing to keep in mind is that your brain has cells also. They're called neurons. They're specialized cells. They're a little bit different from other cells in the body, but they're cells nonetheless. You have about 100 billion of them in your mind. That's about the same amount of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. That's how many neurons you have. Now, these neurons, imagine, when the neurons start to purge, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up having this mental agitation, because neurons, when they connect to each other, that's how thoughts are formed. Thoughts are formed through the communication between these 100 billion neurons and these neuronal networks that they set in your brain. So when these cells start to purge, imagine 100 billion neurons purging, it could lead to this kind of disjointed, unfocused type of thoughts, because now your neurons are more preoccupied with purging, and they're taking a little break from their normal kind of communication and congruent thoughts, okay? And so that's essentially what's happening. In the process of your neurons releasing old energy, these disjointed thoughts can come through, and your mind can be a little bit more agitated, out of balance, all over the place. You can lose focus, but really, when I'm talking about mental agitation, it's not really like mental fogginess or losing your focus. It's more about disjointed, sometimes dark, sometimes dense, negative thoughts popping up in your mind out of nowhere, with a high frequency throughout the day. That's what I refer to when I'm talking about mental agitation. It's not so much like a lack of concentration or anything like that, because those things can be due to other aspects of your awakening. But specifically for this symptom that I'm talking about, it's more negative thoughts, darker thoughts that are coming up all over the place that make no sense to you sometimes. And they're coming up precisely because these neurons are in the state of purging. Now, one of the reasons why the mental agitation can be higher as you're falling asleep and as you're waking up is because this is the phase of the day where your subconscious mind is allowed to come up and the conscious mind isn't controlling it anymore. So as you're falling asleep, your conscious mind is going offline. As you're waking up, your conscious mind is just starting to come online. And in the middle of those two time frames, your subconscious mind is really coming to the forefront. And that means that because your subconscious mind houses your strongest beliefs, your past trauma, past painful experiences, all the things that have happened to you, all the things that you believe about life. Well, during this purge, that subconscious mind is going to kick up a lot of stuff that you may not have even realized was housed in the subconscious mind, and that can also lead to agitation. Now, one of the reasons why, the most important reason why this mental agitation symptom tends to be one of the most problematic for people is because when people are having these kind of disjointed thoughts, when their minds are all over the place, what ends up happening is it really scares them, okay? And so when they start to have the mental agitation, they will start to get scared, and the emotion fear will increase in their body. And guess what? Fear makes ascension symptoms worse, okay? So that's why people end up freaking out when they have this particular symptom, is because now they're scared, they're afraid, they start to get anxious, and all of the fear building up in their body really makes the ascension symptoms worse. Why? Because your body is pulling up into a pure, higher frequency energy, and the more you emit fear, the more you're pulling your body back down. Fear is a very dense emotion. And so you end up setting up this tug of war inside of your body between your body pulling you up into ascension and you emitting fear, holding it down. There's this tug of war that's going on in your body. Okay, so from here on in, remember, this is going to be important for you to remember when we talk about the tips too. that when you're going through ascension symptoms, the more fear or freaked out you're feeling, the worse the ascension symptoms will get. Okay, on to part 3 of the video, the helpful tips to help you get through these ascension symptoms right now. I'm going to share with you my top 5. And the first one that I want to get into is decreasing fear. Okay, so decrease fear. So it's kind of a continuation of the conversation that we were having before, where I was talking about how fear really makes ascension symptoms worse because it's a dense emotion and it's pulling against your ascending energy. And so tip number 1, decrease fear. The calm, remember this is going to be so important for you to remember moving forward with any time your soul triggers ascension phases for you. The calmer you are, the more at peace you are, the faster you get through the ascension symptoms and the easier it'll be to get through the ascension symptoms, okay? So how do you decrease fear? The rest of the tips that I'm going to share in this video will help by themselves to decrease fear, but I wanted to leave one special trick here that I love to use that it decreases fear in the body and agitation pretty quickly, and it's gentle touch, okay? So self-touch. So gentle self-touch works really well. You can just take a nice deep breath. You can focus on breathing, nice deep breath, and then you just literally start stroking your body nice and slow, almost like a parent would stroke their child if they're upset or they're crying. In the same way, really treat your body in that very gentle way. Gentle touch to the skin helps to release relaxation hormones, and that'll kind of balance out the fear and calm your system down and calm that fight or flight response that you're having in the body. Okay, so just gentle touch, very gentle touch. You could pair it with deep breathing to even make it more effective. And just that alone will help decrease fear in your body. Tip number 2 is to increase fluid intake. Oh, this is so important. The more that you ascend, the more light your body is channeling, the more you need to increase your water intake, because water is a conductor of energy. And so if you're going through any kind of ascension symptoms where, for example, I was talking about the muscle inflammation having to do with the light coming in and banging up against areas of your body where the energy is blocked, the more water you introduce to the system, the easier it'll be for the energy to circulate. Okay, so increase your fluid intake. Now, I'm going to give you some recommendations on how to do that. So I have a baseline of water that I drink. So I drink about 2 liters of pure water, just water. That's about half a gallon if you're in the US and you use different metric system. Okay, so 2 liters or half a gallon of water. That's my base that I drink in pure water every day. But that's not all that I drink. You may find, 2 liters is not a lot. That's the base, okay? And then I compound other fluids on top of that. So I'm going to give you a list of my favorite fluids that I just keep drinking throughout the day,